7, 6, 5.
Welcome back, everyone, to Marathon 2025. We have a new run for you. Yes, a more modern run. Can you believe it? We have Gran Turismo 7 being run by Thrasher. Why don't you take it away?
Hello everyone, my name is Thrasher DBS. I am a racing game connoisseur, and I am happy to be back here at Marathon repping a Gran Turismo game. So, for our all licenses run, we have a total of 5 licenses with 10 tests apiece. And we're just going to be passing every single one of them. So, ready with the time if you are. So, you want to count me down, possibly?
Yep, I'll count you down. I believe tech is all ready, so I'll count you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Off we go. Okay, so the very first test on every single Gran Turismo game is the classic start, drive off for a certain amount of meters, and then stop in a designated space. So, as a reference to Gran Turismo 1, they also happen to have License B1 be done in a Mazda Demio, which we're driving here. So, nice, quick, easy, simple. So the next one is going to be pretty much the same test, except in a Mitsubishi GTO, which also is kind of a reference to Gran Turismo 1 because that's how it kind of progressed in that game. So, in general, the B license, as you can probably imagine, is pretty much just the basics. Pretty much just like, how do you judge braking points, how to take a corner, that kind of thing. Oop, I might have overshot a wee bit, but as long as we pass, it's no worries. Okay, so now that the silly, funny, simple ones are out of the way, we're going to take a right turn. It's a very complicated process taking a right turn, but it's going to be nice and smooth. They give us a nice, slow little Daihatsu Copen for this one. So we're just going to swing around there a little bit.
Americans could never turn right. All they know is turn left with NASCAR.
But I'm turning left. Oh gosh. Okay. So what you just saw there was a individual license PB, which is absolutely great in ILs, but during full-length runs like this, ironically, that loses me time if I get a personal PB on an individual test, because it stops to tell you, hey, you got a PB, and it's like, cool, I need to get moving, so can we just move it along here? So, yeah, so I'll have to make a mental note. B3 was a PB. Same thing, just in an all-wheel drive car, a little faster. So we're just flying through the B license here, because it's all just real slow, simple stuff. Cornering basics, so daringly, we're going to be taking 2 corners this time. Very spicy, very... oh my goodness. Oh no. Can't believe it. So we're just gonna quietly, just kind of smoothly take these, and bada-boom, we're out of here. Whew, whew. Alright. So, doing the same section again, but in a much faster and more rowdy car, a 370Z. This is kind of a common theme that you see in license tests a lot of times through Gran Turismo games, is where they'll have the same test over again, but in like a quicker car, or, you know, with a different kind of stipulation attached to it. So I feel like it does not too bad of a job of it in this game, even if 10 licenses or 10 tests per license is a bit much, I'd say. Gran Turismo 2 was kind of obnoxious about it, where it was literally just like there were lots of duplicate tests, except like instead of turning right, you're turning left. just same cars, pretty much same time constraints and everything. So I feel like they put a little too fine a point on it on a lot of the lessons they were trying to teach, but here I feel they kind of do a good job of mixing, you know. But yeah, let's see here.
I mean, it may be all well and good being able to turn left, but we need to test if they can turn right in the same degree.
Right, for sure. Yeah, it's just not. Sometimes it does kind of grate, especially if you're doing them over and over, though. Where it's just like, come on, I already know how to turn right in a Lexus IS300. I don't need to know how to turn left in an IS300. But yeah. So, very good showcase of a lot of the new cars that got introduced in this game, or introduced and then like some returning favorites from like older games as well, along with like integrating these tests into, you know, the tracks that got, you know, tracks that are in this game, giving you a good preview of what's to come, essentially. Now, granted, to beat the game, you only need National A license, which I find interesting as far as a design choice goes, but yeah, you only need up to 8 National A license to beat this game, but we go the full way here. Well, at least what was the full way on launch. I've gone into the Master license, like only one test of the Master license, and that is unknown territory for me. But we're not visiting that in this run, so is what it is. So
what are all the different levels of license then?
Alright, so there are 5 of these in total. There are National B, which we just completed, National A, International B, International A, and then Super License. And Super License is very distinctive since that one is entirely one-lap time trials across multiple different tracks in the game, with like a wide variety of different vehicles as well. So we're talking F1 or Super Formula Car at Laguna Seca, Supercar at Monza, that sort of thing. And S10 in particular, the very final test in this run, is very notorious for how difficult and tricky it is, which makes sense. It's the last test of what was at the time the, you know, top of the line license. We will see that soon enough. And gotta say, Super License, considering they're all one-lap time trials, you have to dedicate a fair amount of time to them. A fair amount of this run is going to be on Super License, and it's why I've kind of given myself a relatively generous berth on my estimate. Because if something goes pear-shaped towards the end of any of those, that is minutes lost. Not seconds, minutes. So, yeah, just don't want that to be the case. But yeah, basically the strategy that I've got in my head is, since all I need to do is to pass and not necessarily, you know, set a banger time on all of these, is pretty much just 70% and making it is better than 90% and potentially biffing it towards the end. And that's another new record that ironically loses me time.
Not being too good at the game. Simple.
Yeah. Well, beating previous PBs is... yeah. Even if everything else in this run goes pear-shaped, I could still, you know, submit those individual kind of things as, hey, would you check it out? I got something out of this. I can submit these to the boards. So, but yeah, in general, as you've probably noticed, that a lot of these tests are a lot more complex than they were in B license. We're seeing like multiple chicanes. We're seeing, you know, multiple complexes leading into like straights and all that kind of stuff. But it's, they're still in very manageable cars, even if, front wheel drive, wrong wheel drive. But yeah, so actually this one, very good demonstration of the variety. So now we're in the wet for the first time, and we're in an FR car. So things will probably get a little squirrely in the corners, but this 180's still relatively manageable in terms of power. So not a whole lot's gonna go wrong, as I was about to say before understeering directly into that corner. So we're just gonna casually just keep it nice and smooth, and hey, we're still way under bronze time. So a pass is a pass. We're very much in the seized get degrees mentality in this run. And by my own splits, I am 40 seconds ahead of PB. Though, granted, the PB that I did about a handful of hours ago, I got a little complacent through most of this license. So, at any rate, the Ascari curves and Alpha 4C. Very neat introduction to MR cars and how they can kind of behave. So, quick, easy, out of there. Alright, so, next one. First corners of Barcelona. Do you have any particular experience with Gran Turismo or anything like that, or?
Not to my knowledge. It's possible I've maybe played a level or two just because it was set up somewhat, but honestly, not with the Gran Turismo games themselves.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, I feel like they're reasonably accessible so far as the general genre of racing sims. I mean, heck, I've heard lots of people kind of scoff at calling this a racing sim, honestly, because there's it's not quite as complex as, say, Assetto Corsa or like iRacing or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, but they're full on like Formula racing type games, aren't they?
Yeah, and well, also kind of spec racing type stuff, as I've noticed as well. I'm not that deep in the weeds over there on the sim racing side of things. But, yeah, just one of those things I just kind of observe from afar. But, yeah. So, quick little introduction to dirt racing and, or dirt racing in this particular game. So, relatively simple. It feels like the dirt physics are a little different than when this game behaved at launch. So I've noticed that things are a little slower on dirt. But anyways, not going to affect us too much since most of it's on the tarmac. So, yeah.
I'm surprised there is some dirt racing. I thought Gran Turismo was just all tarmac racing.
From 2 onwards, they introduced rally racing, and when I say rally, it's not necessarily like rally the same way that you'd see in like WRC. It's pretty much just like a glorified rallycross thing because it's closed circuits as opposed to the sort of point-to-point stuff that you'd see in like Colin McRae Rally or V Rally, stuff like that. So
They're like street racing type.
sorta, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And that is a license in the bag. So, that is 20 tests down and 30 more to go. Things are going to start escalating a wee bit from here on out. We're going to start seeing a lot more rowdy cars, as you can probably see by the glimpse there. Next test is going to be in a Ferrari F430, and I'm in a C7 Stingray on this one. So, this one, you get to kind of get a little curveball here, where it's just like, hey, this thing's gonna slide out on you. on this very deceptively simple corner. So, but we keep it on the track and we get out of here. B license obtained? A license obtained, actually. Alright, so Daytona Road...
It was this easy in real life.
Yeah. What?
I wish it was this easy in real life.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially where a mistake, like, just costs you a few seconds and not, you know, a bill for the wrecked super... well, also, like, a bill for the wrecked supercar. You know what I'm saying? So... Yep. The good old bus stop chicane from Daytona. Honestly, it makes me miss Special Stage Route 11, which had a very infamous bus stop chicane midway through that if you took it wrong, you'd faceplant directly into a barrier and lose a whole bunch of time. But yeah, a lot of these, from International B onwards, a lot of the tests are focused on more practical applications of, you know, tracks you're going to be racing a whole lot. So we saw Willow Springs, we saw Daytona, we're at Fuji Speedway right now. If you're familiar with these tracks, like, just in general, like, because a lot of these are real world circuits, so there's a good chance that you've seen them in other racing games, even if you haven't played Gran Turismo 4. So just a matter of, like, getting used to the car and the way the physics work in this specific game versus the others. So we're just moving right along here. My own splits say I am about a minute ahead, but at any point that can change quite rapidly. Let's hope it doesn't. So, urban tracks in general, so Tokyo Expressway, which is where we're at right now, I'm a little bit nervous on, because on most tests, if you go off into the grass or whatever, that's a fail. But there's plenty of, like, it'll give you a certain amount of grace before it's like, okay, yeah, you failed, you're out of course. If you so much as breathe on the walls on any track or whatever, that's an instant fail, which makes these a lot more treacherous, because you don't have the berth or whatever. Do you drive on the Nürburgring in this category? Not the full thing. You don't drive on the full Nürburgring, but there is at least one test that happens on the Nordschleife. But even that,
yeah, I was going to say...
Yeah?
With there just being obviously a lot of references to famous real-life tracks. I was thinking, was the Nürburgring one of them?
Oh, it absolutely is. It made its state, or at least the Nordschleife section of it made its debut in Gran Turismo 4 and has been pretty much a staple ever since. Kind of same goes with Le Mans as well. So,
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, the funny haha yellow Evo meme is out of the way. So, yeah. So, Red Bull Ring. Okay, here's a little bit more of a tricky kind of, a little bit more of a tricky one, because FR car and it's a torrential downpour, and as you can probably see in the lower left-hand corner, there's a gauge that kind of shows kind of what the moisture of where I'm at is currently. So when it goes blue, that's kind of an indicator that the car's starting to try to hydroplane. So this is a little tricky. Let's see here. I should make it. Oh yeah, we'll make it. Took it awfully careful on that, but yeah.
I bet it's safe and sorry in a marathon run.
Absolutely. I mean, the entire this week and last, my anxiety has been like, I sure hope I don't go overestimate. And I did a run a handful of hours ago, and I wound up PBing by about 3 or so minutes, so that was at least a good confidence booster there. Plus, I was drilling a lot of super license leading up to this as well. So, unlike the last time I was here, I actually showed up with practice. And the last time I was here was literally just a case of, wait, you mean that was today? So, but yeah, plenty of look ahead on this one. So, I generally don't like that test, but that's mainly down to the fact that it's an EV that I'm driving. So, yeah. They're a little tricky. So, and then here we go to a big, lumbering, super powerful luxury car. That's gonna oversteer if or understeer if I cook it too much in there. But it's nice and smooth through here, actually. Love it. I'm actually very pleased with how that shaped up, actually. Okay, so out of there. So we're over halfway there. Alright. Alsace test course. So this one's got a very weird kind of roller coaster-esque kind of corner to it because there's a massive elevation change, and it's a turn that's accompanied by it. So, gotta pick my line here relatively competently, and then power through here, and we're out of there.
Oh wow, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yup. Would assume we get rewarded with cars if we get all golds. For every single license, this is done on a already done file, so there's not I can't get the car again. But you get a car for passing every license, and you also get another car if you happen to gold every license. So they're predetermined. I don't remember exactly which ones you get off the top of my skull, but yeah. So something notable about IB10 here. This is actually a direct reference to the same test in Gran Turismo 3 and I think a license as well. I think this was like the graduation test there as well. So, yeah, generally, you just keep the car stable. You just keep it in between the ditches, and you should be fine. Okay, International A. Things are going to start getting a little spicier now. So, this one's a little deceptive for me because I misjudged my braking point a whole lot, and then I wind up understeering out of here. So, we're going to take this nice and easy, because this DB11 has caught me out several times from just sheer understeer and overcooking it in here. But we're out of there. So,
actually, speaking of past games and stuff, wasn't it a Gran Turismo game where they found out how to get the specific fastest car you want with like menu abuse and stuff like that? So if you did it a certain way, if you kept like going back out to the menu a certain amount of times, you'll get a specific position on the I know, the roulette or whatever it was, the spinning cars, I guess.
So that kind of. So as I understand it, all the tickets or all the roulettes are actually predetermined. So pretty much it's determined by the time you get it, and just the whole roulette thing is just, just to be like, hey, here's other things you could have gotten, except that's not even true, because there's certain star tickets or whatever where it'll only give you like a certain amount of things, and then it'll, like on the roulette, it'll show you other things that you absolutely could not get on that ticket, and that goes both ways. So like a 6-star ticket, it'll sometimes show like a 5,000 credit like payout or whatever that you can't get unless you're at a lower ticket. Actually, wait a minute. Are you referring to, now that I think about it, are you referring to like Gran Turismo 3 where like people save scum to like check and see if they can get another car? Like from
It might have
winning
been.
a championship?
It might have been. I just remember there was one of the recent games that, not sure how recent it was. I feel like it was recent.
Yeah.
They discovered that technique.
Right. Fair enough. I think that might be the case with GT3, but that's a case of like I said, save scumming. So if you pretty much do well enough through a championship, and then save right before the final race, and then just, you know, enter the final race, quit immediately out of the final race, but still wind up winning the championship, then you get, you get to see, you know, the prize or whatever. And if you don't like what you got, you can literally just reload and do it over again until you do get something you want. PB'd on that one again, so there's that. But yeah, I think that might be what you're referring to. That's the closest thing I can think of, though. Okay, we're gonna take it nice and careful with this one, because this is plenty quick, and I've got plenty of downforce to keep this on the road, and not have to worry about it stepping out. So, just gotta be careful, and we're out of there. Okay. All right. Here's another test that's been in a few different Gran Turismo games, specifically taking a first or technically second-gen Viper through the corkscrew at Laguna Seca. But honestly, if you're used to A, the car, and B, this track enough, nice, quick, easy, simple. But it's definitely a corner that catches out newbies a lot. Especially if you're in a very powerful FR car like a Viper. So it doesn't kind of helps my case that Laguna Seca happens to be my favorite track, just generally in racing games. So
Speaking of Viper, we do have some donations that I can read now that we have access to stuff.
Yep.
So we have a £10 donation from Viper, just saying Macrathon 2025 is a go. We have a £10 donation from Kuno saying good luck gamers. We have a £1 donation from Paddy too, just saying eyes emoji. We have a £9.50 donation from Dean saying hello there, Viper, Mikey. Hello there, chat. I hope you're having a marvellous morning. Mikey, could you please make a Lightning McQueen sound for a fan? Pretty please. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that on time, but I'm not actually too sure if Mikey's back again. So we apologise for that. But instead we might be able to get Viper to do it instead. I'm sure he would. And finally, we have a £25 donation from Ugu saying, good afternoon drivers, spin those steering wheels, rev up those engines and go fast, vroom vroom. Donating for good luck and charity. So that has been all the donations that have been donated so far. So if you wish to donate as well, chat, you can do !donate or go to the panel below and click that. It has been a little weird, we are still working on that, but through a little bit of finagling we can see your donations. So Freshen, yep, just back to you then.
Absolutely. It's wonderful that, we've got so many people that are willing to donate to a cause like this, and it's always great coming to being able to participate in Macrathon, honestly, too, because it's just, it feels very much like racing games, at least the way we tend to celebrate them are kind of like passed over, or just kind of like, yeah, I guess that seems cool by like the general populace, but otherwise just mostly disregarded. So it's good to kind of be able to celebrate those and also, contribute to, a charity for, unite in our passion for these sorts of games as well. So it's really great seeing you guys put this on every year, honestly. So,
It's always fun to focus on driving games because I do feel like I obviously watched my first show and participated in my first show of marathons. Racing games always do get underrepresented, whether that's just because there's not as many people that submit it, or maybe they just don't make it through game cuts or whatever. So the fact that we're able to showcase them all here is just a nice thing to do.
absolutely, yeah. It's always great to see. So, this is generally considered to be a very tough test in of itself too. We're very much in the thick of the Nordschleife here, and it wraps up just. I've forgotten what the actual name of this corner is, but here's the infamous YouTube corner, where everyone tends to bite it in that dirt trap over there. So, here we are. Quick, easy, out of there. And that's the end of IA license. So, from here on out, we have 1 lap time trials. So, it's about half hour into this run. Next 20 or so minutes are going to be time trials here. So hopefully, this is the part that I was the most worried about. So this is what I've been really grinding at. So hopefully we make it through without any fails, which we've managed to do so far. But the easy stuff's over. Now it's time to really, put together what we've learned. So at any rate, the gag here is, of course, very high-powered, all-wheel drive Lamborghini that's also really heavy and on sports mediums, so if you go in a little too overconfident, you're going directly into a wall. But nice, quick, easy, simple. Understeer's kind of annoying, but as long as we pass, we're in the clear. Very fitting that they decide to start with a track from the very first Gran Turismo that's made an appearance in every installment, except for Gran Turismo 3 and GT Sport. But we're out of there. Not too far off gold on that one, actually, so that's neat. Alright, I messed up this next one in practice a little bit, simply because I misjudged the braking point. But this is on the real-life Monza, the site of the Italian Grand Prix. So it's a nice long straight here, and then we get hit with a very slow, very tight chicane. So I'm going to start braking here to kind of give myself enough room. Because last time I went sailing off into the barriers there, and that's no good. That was a good 20 plus seconds down the drain. But we just keep it nice and clean and simple. One of my favorite Ferraris, by the way, is the F50. One of the first iterations of racing manufacturers going, you know what if we took one of our F1 race cars and tried to make a production car out of it. So that said, it can get a little squirrely, but kind of abusing traction control a little bit. I'm taking the coward's way out on this, but it keeps it under control just enough. But yeah, learning when to slow down was the hard part for learning sim racing. Absolutely. Like, braking points are definitely everything. And also knowing when to take off again, because usually the first one on the gas outside of, on the exit of a corner is usually the one that wins the drag race into the straight. But That can also come unglued pretty quickly, too. I feel like I should note, I am on a... Well, they don't call it DualShock anymore. A DualSense, so I'm on gamepad. So I'm not here in my bedroom with a sim rig. I literally do not have the floor space for it. But it's definitely something that I've seen a lot of top runners in this game use, which, honestly, understandable. It tends to give you a little bit of an advantage if you know how to use it. But I'm just a filthy creature of habit. Default controls for this actually, it makes you kind of... Default controls for this on gamepad are using like L2 and R2 for the brake-in acceleration, and then the left analog stick for steering. I am so old that I literally still use X and square for gas and brake, and the D-pad for steering, which you can probably tell I use D-pad for steering based on kind of how jerky my steering movements are. But if it works, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. So, yeah. Still fetches me decent results, I'd say. Yeah. So, I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out so far. Knocking on wood there. I would like that to continue to be the case. So, out of Tsukuba we are. Alright, next one, we're going to be at one of the tests that I'm nervous about. So, if you remember what I said about the Tokyo Expressway, well, here we are in a classic GT500 race car from the late 90s. So, remember what I said about the walls? Well, you're kinda just surrounded by those, and any kind of misstep, and bada boom, you're out of there. Doesn't help that this car can also come unglued without warning as well. It tends to have plenty of downforce to kind of keep you stable, but it's definitely run away from me quite a bit before. So I am taking it nice, easy, and kind of cowardly. So I also want to take note of being in between the curves, because it will count as being off course if you happen to put more than 2 tires in between there. But here we go. Being able to gold GT with face buttons, D-pad is crazy. I mean, it takes some time. It's just kind of what you're... If it's something you're used to, I mean, it works. But yeah, this is a very technical layout of the Tokyo Expressway. I kind of lose track of like all the designations that the game has for all the different routes or whatnot in this game, but me and a few of my close friends have another friend who does music and used to host, hangout lobbies. He'd use this track a whole bunch, so we just kind of wind up calling it just the Gemini layout, because it's named after Chill Gemini, who made, would have those lobbies up. And, real chill guy if you ever run into him online or, whatever. Also makes really good Gran Turismo jazz-inspired kind of vaporwave covers, songs too, if you ever look them up. But I am very happy to be out of there, because I messed that up in PB, and I just went from a minute 12 ahead of PB to almost 3.5 minutes ahead of PB. So I'm kind of liking how this run's shaping up. But we need to not get complacent. So, yeah. All right. Throughout all the updates and whatnot that this game has had since launch, I am a little disappointed with where dirt is kind of right now, because everything does feel like a little less grippy and a little more slow than it used to be. But that's just kind of how it is when you've got essentially a live service game, just tweaking everything here and there. But yeah, we don't typically lose too much time on these, even if it is, some. But yeah, it's always fun to get sideways on these. And this is before Lake Louise got put into Game 2, so that's the game's designated snow track, so... I imagine that's somewhere deep in the master licenses, so... maybe at some point I'll encounter those. But yeah, we're out of Sardinia, and we're on to S6 at the revamped Trial Mountain. So this is one of those tracks that people were a little they were happy to see it come back. What they weren't happy about was how it got revamped, essentially. So the straight on the front and the back straight are significantly lengthened, and the chicane at the very end, where you could just yeet your car in earlier games, that's completely gone now. That's pretty much 2 consecutive right angle corners, which kind of kills the pacing a little bit. But I think that was to try and make it like somehow FIA kind of standardized. I don't quite remember if it was during GT Sport or GT7's life cycle where Gran Turismo lost the FIA sponsor or branding or whatnot. But yeah, at the very least, you still get to experience an old retro track that GT Sport kind of did away with and then made its grand return here. Basically, this track, Deep Forest, and Grand Valley got revamped quite a bit, with Grand Valley looking very much unlike how it did previously. Pretty much taking place on the Pacific Coast Highway instead of, just a general valley just somewhere on Earth. Being very gingerly with this one, because I am very aware of Mustangs doing Mustang things, and for those who don't know, Mustangs doing Mustang things. Very bad snap oversteer on hitting the gas, and then nasty understeer in the corners. Usually because of that big old V8 that's sitting up front. I know, look at my CarTuber avatar up in the upper left-hand corner. But, yeah, thankfully, this car was very nice to me on this particular run. Because this will come unglued for you in a hurry. Okay. Test number 2 that I was worried about. My favorite track. Unfortunately, I'm driving an open-wheeler, and I am not so good with those. It's still kind of a balancing act of, like, being able to trust the car and, the sort of downforce that you get from it. And then all of a sudden, oopsies, you're looping it. So, yeah. Also, another thing that is very glaring on this test, and probably the best to, bring up now, is the fact that this track has sausage curbs. I do not like those. Those are apparently for, like, track safety, just kind of like deter people from taking too tight of a line and, cutting the track. But at the same time, I feel those are definitely a safety hazard, because if you bounce off of one of those, that's going to send your car out of control in some way, shape, or form. Oh, okay. So, my worry on this isn't necessarily spinning out. Mine is actually timing out. So I have a minute and 14 to get to the end, and I might be good by a few seconds, but that's still a little close for comfort. So, thanks for being out of there. Very thankful for being out of there. Alright, next one we have the Pagani Zonda R at Interlagos. So, this one can kind of get a little squirrely if you just kind of go in full send, as, you know, most cars tend to be, but thankfully it actually stays well behaved enough if you know your braking points well. But yeah, very nice to see this track. Very nice track in Brazil, honestly. Actually, the lone South American representative in terms of tracks, to be honest. Don't really see a lot of South American tracks in racing games other than, like, Interlagos or, like, I think Buenos Aires or something like that. Yeah. So, it's very characterized by these switchbacks here. So, quite
I wasn't
literally.
even aware there was many tracks in South America.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those are the only two I can name off the top of my head. And one was in, what was it? It was called Jarrett and Labonte Stock Car Racing in the US, but I'm pretty sure everywhere else it was literally just a Toka game.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard about that actually.
Yeah. So Argentina and Brazil is all I can muster, unfortunately, in terms of South American tracks. Okay, we're out of here. Toka World Touring Cars, yeah, or rather Between Lakes, yeah. All right, second to last one, and we are on Deep Forest in a high-powered, somewhat modern-ish GT500 car. So, my main sticking point on this one is making sure I don't mess up the hairpin towards the end of the track. In earlier games, that was a very, very smooth kind of left-hander that you had to be somewhat kind of careful for, but otherwise you could, you know, take it at a reasonably high speed. But because they've lengthened the straights here, like they did with Trial Mountain, a lot of these smoother corners are no longer smooth. Like, you need to brake for a very acute angled hairpin at the end of this upcoming straight here. And also had Mexico, but that's North America. Yeah. That said, with all the updates they've done to these tracks, the layouts are kind of iffy, but the visuals, I will say, definitely stand out, as they mostly do in Gran Turismo games, I'd say. Like, all the environments look very picturesque. Like,
It does look very beautiful.
Yep, absolutely. So they decided to take a lot of the original tracks and say, like, assign actual locations to them. So this is apparently in Switzerland. So, you know, very nice Swiss mountains there. Trial Mountain curiously takes place in the Sierra Nevadas. And then, as I said before, Grand Valley takes place in the Pacific Coast Highway in the United States. So, this is the infamous one. This is the very final one. The moment I cross the finish line on this one, I am done with the run. And hopefully, A, a PB, B, failless. So, this is what I was the most worried about in terms of, oh god, am I going to go over estimate? Because if this goes pear-shaped towards the end, it is minutes. I'm losing. But yeah, so basically you're in a Porsche 917K, so a Le Mans racer from the early 70s, on 70s racing hards, so racing slicks. And as you can probably see, this is Spa-Francorchamps with a whole bunch of wet spots on the road. So, the idea behind this is it's how well can you stick to the racing line. Because if you step out of line, you're going to hit the wets on slicks, and you're spinning out, and it's a reset at that point. So, thankfully, it's kind of forgiving to pass, I will say, as soon as you get, used to the car and the track. Getting gold on this is tantamount to going across... Okay. Getting gold on this is tantamount to crossing a tightrope at a full sprint, I will say. Like, it is... You need to be completely dialed in for this. Because Spa, even if it's, completely dry, it's still a very technical and difficult kind of course. So, as you can see, I'm still kind of taking coward strats a little bit. Very, very early braking a lot of places and, coasting here and there. And, oop. Making sure this old race car doesn't come unglued. But I feel like the worst is behind me right now. So we are getting very close to GG, and off to the left here, and sprint off, and that is time.
GG.
GG, and that is a 50:28 by my clock, and that is PB by over 3 minutes. And if I'm not mistaken, that is also second place on the boards.
Nice. Always nice to see a PB happening at a marathon.
Yep, I am very pleased with that, actually. It's also a fail-less run, too, which I'm further happy with. So, that will just about do it for me. I guess shout-outs or last-minute donos?
We do have a donation. We have a £10 donation from Maverick Hunter Vile with no comment. Thank you very much. But apart from that, do you want to do your shoutouts then?
Absolutely.
Tell people where they can find you?
Absolutely. I'm Thrasher DBS on Twitch. You can also find me under Thrasher the Black Stallion on YouTube. I don't really post a whole lot there, but I want to give shoutouts to my buddies. It's T-Mac. I saw him in chat. He's one of my close friends, one of my buddies, Tyler. Really glad he, could be up to see this run. It's a little bit of an awkward hour for him. My buddy / Arbiter in chat, and Maverick Hunter Vile. Obviously, real good friend, and he's gonna be, he's gonna be running, I was hoping this would be a hit where, threw together a livery for specifically this marathon. Going to be sharing that. If any of you have GT7, just look up, type in McRathon, you can get this livery if you own a 98 Impreza rally car. But shouts to Maverick, Dutchy, who we're going to be seeing next on their R4 race, and absolutely a big shout out to y'all keeping this lovely marathon running. And like I've said before, it's amazing to get to see this get put on every year, and I'm very thankful and humbled that you guys invited me back on this one. So
yeah, no worries. Thank you for showcasing this run, also doing that little livery job. That's a very nice touch.
Yep.
Folks, we will be going to an intermission as we set up for our race. As I should just said, it is an R4 race, a long overdue race for those that know. And it's also the end of my hosted shift for now. You will see me later, but don't be going anywhere, because this race is going to be very interesting, because it's not your standard one. It is going to be an alternative race. So we will not be using the normal cars. But we will see you in a few minutes.